Smokey Robson. I'm here with two Florida Master Naturalists, Danielle Palli and Judy Williams. We're here to inform and discuss a hot topic concerning prescribed burns. Lately, newscasters have talked about Florida, and they broadcast information about wildfires throughout the state. Danielle, what in the world is a prescribed burn?
Well, Smokey, first of all, thank you for having me on the show. So a prescribed burn is a planned fire, and it's sometimes referred to as a controlled burn. That might sound contradictory, but a prescribed burn is actually used to manage and prevent widespread wildfires.
How does a prescribed burn differ from a natural burn and a chemical burn?
Okay, well, a natural burn is a fire caused through a natural occurrence, such as a lightning strike during a thunderstorm. A chemical burn or herbicide application is used in cases where an invasive plant is overtaking a habitat and choking out other plant species. But it's either resistant to fire or living in an aquatic area where a burn may not be as effective. A chemical burn may also be used when a habitat is close to development or just simply for its cost effectiveness. Some instances where they might use chemicals would be in treating the hydrilla or the aquatic soda apple.
Judy, why do we need prescribed burns?
We need prescribed burns in order to keep the bulk of the underbrush down so that the wildfires don't take hold and burn too hot and too close to houses. It also prevents the spread of plant disease, helps to maintain the habitat, and returns the nutrients to the soil.
How does it control wildfires?
It controls wildfires by keeping the amount of fuel to a minimum. If it builds up and builds up, once a fire does start, it's too hot and too much. Whereas if you have the control burns, then you have a smaller, controlled situation that does the job without becoming a danger.
Danielle, won't a burn kill many trees?
Actually, many habitats benefit from birds. Some would include like the pine flatwoods and the dry prairies because the fire releases and recycles nutrients bound to dead organic material. These nutrients are used by surviving plants such as the longleaf pine. Fire encourages new growth. Additionally, trees such as the loblolly, shortleaf, longleaf, and slash pines have a deep root system and have adaptations to their leaves and needles that are fire resistant. So while the top layer of a tree may be burned, it recovers very quickly, and you can often see evidence of this within a week.
Well, you mentioned that a burn helps preserve the plant and animal species. How does that happen?
Well, that's a really good question. I'm going to give you an example shared by a colleague recently who gave a talk about the gopher apple. The gopher apple is a prominent food source for the gopher tortoise. With burning, the plant remains low to the ground, and the gopher tortoise can reach the fruit. Without burning, that plant can grow to more than 5 feet high, and the gopher tortoise can't reach it and loses that food source. Since the gopher tortoise, their burrows actually serve as a home to many species within an ecosystem, it's considered a keystone species. So if you lose the gopher tortoise, then you put other animal species in jeopardy. Now, this is just one example, but we know that many other mammals benefit, including the Florida panther, the indigo snake, the red cockaded woodpecker. So burns stimulate the production of fruits and seeds and increase yield for herbage.
Judy, do you have anything to add to this?
Yes, the burns help to prevent the aggressive exotic plants or taking over the ecosystem by smothering the growth of beneficial grasses and native plants and accumulating the understory, making mobility of wildlife a challenge.
Danielle, why can't we just let nature take its course?
You know, 100 plus years ago, I may have agreed with you. If lightning struck an area once every 5 years, a wildfire would burn all the way to the nearest water source and burn out. Today, however, we have agricultural lands and housing developments, and we really can't risk destroying them. Additionally, we've introduced invasive plants and animals to our environment, and now they're strangling out the native species. We really have no choice but to essentially clean up the mess we've made.
Judy, there are those who would argue that prescribed burns are harmful. Can you play the devil's advocate for a minute and speak to this issue?
Well, controlled burns are generally beneficial. However, there are times when things go wrong. One of the problems that you could anticipate would be the smoke. There isn't any way to have the fire and not have the smoke, but it can be a big problem for people that have asthma or COPD.
So where there's smoke, there's fire?
Yes. You can have problems if a fire was to burn too hot or too fast and spread beyond the boundaries and into residential areas and causing more destruction than we intended. One problem that you might run into is if a fire was in a circular pattern and convection currents became a major problem. Convection currents are where the air becomes heated and begins rising rapidly. The fire begins to burn hotter and hotter and hotter, and flying embers can be then lifted up and sent quite a distance to spread fires where you didn't mean to have them.
Judy, in an ecologically appropriate fire regime, there are still might be some negative effects of a prescribed burn. Can you talk about the potential of a burn going wrong?
Well, the wind could shift. Anytime the wind could shift and send it a different direction into land that you didn't intend to burn or toward structures. Local weather patterns can change all the time. Another problem you might run into is if you had invasive plants like the European climbing fern that go up into the canopy. The fire will follow those plants, and instead of burning along the ground in a controlled manner, it can get into the canopy and burn where you don't want it and really cause destruction for those trees.
Judy, what are some special conditions for a prescribed burn?
Well, you want to talk to the weatherman. You want to find out what your winds are going to be, what the precipitation pattern's been. You don't want to have a fire when you've got heavy winds or when it's been really, really dry. Drought is a real problem because things are harder to control if it's too dry.
A symbol for the Department of Forestry has become Smokey the Bear, no relation to me. However, the advent of this came about in World War II. Japanese submarines surfaced off the coast of Santa Barbara, California, and shelled and exploded an oil field very close to the Los Padres National Forest. This created a shock for Americans as well as fear because there could be wholesale destruction of life and property. And so they were very much afraid because the Pacific coast could be a tinderbox for wildfires. The Cooperation Forest Fire Prevention, the CFFP, decided that they would find a poster child. And at that time in 1942, there was a picture called Bambi. Bambi was one of those films that every child and many adults just idolized. Well, there was a wildfire at the end of this wonderful movie, and they used that as a symbol. However, Disney reserved the rights for Bambi and only let them use it for about a year. Well, the CFFP decided on a different symbol. It was a cub that was found after a forest fire. The bear was a fitting symbol. The bear is majestic, powerful, and besides that, he was cute. And so he was adopted by the Forest Service. Now, the slogan that Smokey the Bear used was one that changed the whole view of how we looked at forest fires. Only you can prevent forest fires, to only you can prevent wildfires. Danielle, why was this slogan changed?
That's a great story and a great question. In 2001, the slogan was changed due to a massive outbreak of wildfire in natural areas other than forests. We want to promote the prevention of unwanted and unplanned outdoor fires versus prescribed burns. All wildfires begin with an ignition source. Lightning is a common source. However, 9 out of 10 fires are started by people. Debris burning, campfires, arson, discarded smoking products, sparks from machine equipment, arced power lines, and so forth.
Danielle and Judy, can you give a few guidelines for helping us to enjoy our state parks and our wildlife preserves without unintentionally causing harm?
Sure, I can start the conversation rolling on that. So, smokers should use cleared areas. Do not smoke while walking in the woods. Keep vehicles out of dry grass where hot mufflers might come into contact with fuels, because those exhaust systems can heat up to about 1,000 degrees and ignite the local grasses and shrubs. Campers are encouraged to use gas or propane stoves, and if they're going to use charcoal, the residue should not be dumped until it is completely cool. If you're using a fire ring, make sure that all the dry leaves are cleared, because those hot embers can sometimes escape. And most important, carry a shovel and a fire extinguisher at all times.
Judy, do you have anything to add to that?
Yes, I'd like to speak about some of the development that's been placed near forests. Fires that might normally have not been a problem as you have more and more houses close by. You have to consider there's always some danger. There are things you can do to keep your house safe. Pick up roofing materials that are fire resistant, like some of the shingles, metal, something other than shakes. Siding materials that are fire resistant, soffits that are not made of vinyl, and also make sure that your landscaping is back from your home. Allow a 30-foot open area. Select plants that are not highly flammable. And just keep in mind that you need a way in and out and communication so that if there is a problem, you're able to escape safely.
I want to thank Danielle and Judy for being here today. This is an important topic that we've only scraped the surface. In Florida alone, we have had as many as 285,000 fires within a single year, burning more than 1.5 million acres. This is a resource we cannot lose. So we must pay close attention to what's going on to the environment around us.